Germany just lost a penalty shootout to Paraguay. The team that used to be synonymous with winning penalty shootouts. The team that made every other nation in the world genuinely nervous when it went to spot kicks, lost one for the first time in World Cup history. Let that sit for a second. This is the third consecutive World Cup that Germany has not advanced past the first round of knockouts, last going deep in 2014 when they won the whole thing. 3 tournaments, 3 early exits, and the excuses are running out. Now the German media is already picking its scapegoat. Nagelsmann made strange calls. He recalled Manuel Neuer from international retirement just before the tournament after months of denials. And the 40-year-old arguably cost Germany with his performance against Ecuador in the group stage. And sure, that stuff matters. But here's the thing. Blaming the coach is the easy answer. And the easy answer is almost never the real one. Germany's collapse was defined by inconsistency, a lack of identity, and costly mistakes in decisive moments. That's 3 tournaments in a row now with the same story. At some point, that stops being bad luck and starts being something much deeper. This video is about that something deeper, the psychology of a giant that genuinely forgot how to win. And there's one part of this that almost nobody is talking about, and it's the most uncomfortable truth of all. I'll get to it at the end. Let's start with the identity crisis, because this one is more visible than people realize. One of the main reasons for Germany's failure was the absence of a clear identity. They tried to alternate between dominant possession and fast transitions, but never managed to establish a stable playing style, creating a disconnect between the lines, especially in midfield. And that disconnect isn't just tactical, it's psychological. Because Germany's entire self-image for decades was built on being exactly the opposite of that. Calm, clinical, impossible to rattle. The team that always had a plan and always executed it. When you strip that away and replace it with uncertainty, players stop trusting their instincts. They hesitate in exactly the moments their old selves would have struck. Even Denis Zundav said after the Ecuador loss, "I had the feeling they wanted it more than us." A German player saying that about a team Germany would have dismantled a decade ago. That's not a tactics problem. That's a belief problem. And sitting right on top of that is something that sounds like a strength but has quietly become a poison. The weight of history. Joshua Kimmich described growing up watching Germany always reach the semifinals, the finals, or lift the trophy. "You grew up with that, cheering them on," he said, before apologizing for the team failing to meet expectations. That's the trap right there. Every new German generation walks out under the shadow of 1990, of 2014, of a legacy so heavy it stops being inspiring and starts being suffocating. The pressure of "you're supposed to be Germany" breeds fear of falling short. And fear of falling short is the exact opposite of the free, fearless belief that actually wins tournaments. The past stops being a foundation and becomes an anchor. So you've got players who don't know who they are anymore, carrying the weight of a history they can't live up to. And then you add the third layer, and this is where it gets really uncomfortable to look at: learned helplessness. When a proud team suffers one shock early exit, it's a blip. When it happens again and again, a new belief quietly takes root in the group's subconscious. Here we go again. Sports psychologist Darko Jekwack noted how wins in Germany's first 2 group matches generated a surge of optimism that subsided into dismay and anger after the Paraguay loss, and how surprisingly fast those emotions shifted. That whiplash is exactly what learned helplessness looks like from the outside. The moment the game tightens, the memory of every recent failure tightens with it. The mental aspect of the game was crucial. Jonathan Tah, Kai Havertz, and Nick Woltemade all missed their penalties. These are elite footballers. They don't miss penalties because they forgot how to kick a ball. They miss them because something in the back of their mind is already writing the ending before the run-up even starts. And by the way, Germany had never lost a World Cup penalty shootout before this one. Their record in those high-pressure moments had been perfect. So this wasn't just a defeat. This was the last psychological fortress coming down. Now, if you're finding this interesting and you haven't subscribed yet, do it now, because I've got a video coming that goes even deeper into the psychology of how tournament teams collapse under pressure, and you don't want to miss it. Drop a comment below too. Do you think Germany can actually come back from this? Or is this a longer rebuild than people are admitting? I read every single one, because that brings us to the fourth layer, and the one that's hardest to fix: reputation-bred complacency. For years, being Germany was almost enough on its own before kickoff. The badge, the history, the aura, it did half the intimidating work before a ball was kicked. Germany has already shown its hand by reaching for the good vibes promised by Jurgen Klopp, but the former Liverpool coach is taking charge after 3 successive tournament failures, suggesting Germany may need more than another change of leadership. Because the real problem isn't the coach. The real problem is that the rest of the world stopped being scared. Paraguay had beaten both Brazil and Argentina in World Cup qualifying, and they came into this game with a clear plan that suffocated Germany for central space. They walked out with zero fear of the shirt, and a Germany that subconsciously assumed it would win met an opponent that genuinely believed it could, and that gap in hunger decided the game. Now here's the part almost nobody is saying out loud, the most uncomfortable truth in all of this. Rebuilding a mentality is far harder than rebuilding a squad. Germany needs a long-term footballing philosophy that extends beyond one tournament cycle or one head coach, embracing tactical flexibility without sacrificing their traditional strengths of discipline and collective organization. And they need the patience to see that vision through. You can find new players, you can hire a new coach, but you cannot buy back a winning mind. Germany lifted the World Cup in 2014 because those in charge identified problems at the senior level early, invested in youth academies, and promoted new ideas under Klinsmann and Löw. A rebuild that took the better part of a decade. That's how long it actually takes. And the deepest problem is that a champion's mentality is built over generations of actually winning, and it can be lost in just a few years of doubt. Once it's gone, it has to be relearned from scratch, result by result, belief by belief. So here's where we started. A team that was the definition of a winning mentality, a culture that other nations genuinely feared, a saying every football fan knew by heart: never write off the Germans. Kimmich put it plainly: all of us who were on the pitch should feel that, rather than looking to blame someone else. We blew it. That kind of honesty is actually the first step. But honesty alone doesn't rebuild belief. Results do. And until Germany string enough of them together to rewrite the story they tell about themselves, the giant stays down. The hardest thing to restore in all of sport isn't talent or tactics or youth. It's the simple, unshakable certainty that you belong at the very top. And right now, Germany doesn't have it. If you want to understand how other football giants fell and came back, or didn't, that video is queued up right now. Go watch it.